Here either.
He's
Not on Zoom.
right?
No, I told him we had a quorum, so he didn't have to.
Perfect.
Well, how was South
To
Carolina?
get done. There's a
It was
good
fun.
deal at the tabernacle.
You didn't get a suntan. What happened?
Dan,
I tried. It's been
Larry
fun
Gardner
time
and
with
Steve
beach.
Snow talking about Erastus
Got a
Snow,
train.
Robert
Nelson
Gardner, and Dan
rolling through.
Really?
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock.
Feel that. It was fun. It was a
Okay.
good time.
So let it be said, so let it be
Your
done.
son or your whole family?
Just me and my son.
You ready, Chris?
Be back to some dry heat.
It's been on.
Thank you.
The first time I told.
Okay, it's a few minutes past 5 and Chris says the mic's live, so we're going to go ahead and call this city council meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to city council tonight. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. We have present a smaller group of council people, but a quorum. Councilwoman Lena Mathis is here, Councilman Denny Drake, and Councilman Wendell DeGuber. We will excuse Councilman Waite and Councilman Shakespeare as they're both out of town. Let's go ahead and begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and opening ceremony. We've asked Councilman Drake to lead us in that. Would everyone please rise and salute the flag?
And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, as we come before thee at the beginning of this city council meeting, we ask for thy guiding hand to be with us, that we may make decisions appropriate for the city of Santa Clara and its citizens. We're thankful for the opportunity of serving. We pray that we may always remember that we are public servants, that we're here to do the best we can for those whom we serve. We ask for thy guiding hand in our decision-making process, and this we do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Drake. Communications and appearances. Is there anyone who has come tonight to address the council on an item not on our agenda? None back there? You don't have any, bro?
No.
Okay, we'll go into conflicts and disclosures. Council, are there any items on the agenda tonight where you need to state a conflict of interest? Item number C2 involves me direct. And so our mayor pro temp is gone. I was going to step down. Councilman, I'll let the presentation, you guys can tell me if you'd like me to step down when it comes to that item or not, and one of you can take charge of the meeting. Any other items on the agenda? Anybody has any concerns with?
I'm not sure if we're going to talk about bonding on C4, but if we are, then I'll disclose my employment with Zions because it could be a conflict.
Great. Thank you, Lena. Any others?
Everybody else, this is right. Sorry. The support team.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go into the working agenda. We do not have any public hearings scheduled tonight. Council, on item 5B, the consent agenda, you have before you for your approval the claims and minutes from the June 23rd, 2021 regular city council meeting, the June 23rd executive session, the July 7th city council work meeting, and the claims through July 14th. You can see the calendar of events there. The offices will be closed on July 23rd, celebration of the 24th of July holiday. We have a regular city council meeting on the 28th, and Wendell's already noted that he won't be here for that meeting. And we have a city council work meeting on August 4th. So is there any question or discussion on the consent agenda? I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Lena and a second by Denny to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any question on that motion? Roll call, all in favor, say aye. Lena?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Wendell?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Moving on to item C under general business. C1 is consider approving a second amendment to the city stormwater master plan. Dustin?
I'm here tonight to ask for an amendment to our current stormwater master plan. We're under contract right now with Sunrise Engineering to update that master plan, but they're a few months out. We have found that we have drainage issues on Arrowhead Trail at the west end that we would like to give some attention. The current master plan only calls for curb and gutter. We went down and shot some profiles and the street drains to the west. With that being said, the curb and gutter needs to drain to the west, and we would like to put a pipe in the ground and take it to the east to an existing drain box. There's we don't want to raise impact fees at this time until the stormwater master plan's been updated. We'd just like to amend this to be able to put this pipe in the ground. We've got a development going in that's going to pay for their portion of curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and I've got several homeowners that are also willing to pay for their portion of curb, gutter, and sidewalk. I'd like to do the work in-house with the city crew. We would install the pipe, do the grade for the curb and gutter, sub that out, and the road. We would patch about 3 feet of asphalt from the existing road to the curb and gutter.
And this is impact fee eligible. correct?
Yes, yes,
If we approve this modification to the master plan, it would be.
yes.
It sounds to me like it's a necessary item, isn't it?
Yes.
I'd move that we approve the amendment to the stormwater master plan as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Wendell to approve the stormwater master plan amendment as presented. Is there any question on that issue, that item, that motion? Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Mayor.
If there's no questions, we'll do roll call. Wendell,
Aye.
Danny,
Aye.
Lena,
Aye.
Ben.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, council.
Thank
Item
you.
number 2, consider approval of the RFP selection for Vineyard Drive presented by Dustin Mortensen.
So we put out a public notice for a request for proposal for Vineyard Drive. We received 2 statement of qualifications from Rosenberg and Associates and Sunrise Engineering. After reviewing both of those SOQs, we have decided that Rosenberg is a more qualified firm. We'd like to take Vineyard Drive and separate it into phases. We're calling this one phase 1. I should tell you that the cost on this, I initially put in for $35,000 and I had to change that and it didn't update. It's actually $44,340 is the cost for Rosenberg and Associates to do the engineering design for phase 1. We have a development coming in, Vineyards 11, that would pay their portion of curb, gutter, and sidewalk on most of the east side from the first intersection at the Big Bend to Black Rock Road. And then again, we have homeowner participation on the other side. And there again, I'd like to do what work we can in-house, water line, asphalt grade work, storm drain work. Most of it's, or some of it is impact fee eligible.
And this is one where we've met with property owners out there and we're asking the existing homeowners to pay the curb and gutter and sidewalk along their frontage.
Yeah.
For this project. Phase 1 includes the design all the way from Black Rock Circle down to Riverfront Drive. That reach, so it's a little bit further than what's shown on the map there. And council, if you'd like me to step out in the hall, I'm happy to yield the chair. While you discuss this, up to you. And I won't vote, so don't tie. Wasn't worried about it till Ben came.
Look, here,
But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have with the scope or with the engineering contract.
So this initial phase starts at Black Rock and it goes around the turn where,
Yeah, it starts, Black Rock Circle is up on top.
yeah.
So it starts there. There's one home right there on the corner that doesn't have curb and gutter, and then it
Yeah.
goes down the hill
From
from
the
the Andersons
Andersons.
and Joneses and around the bend in front of Ences and then around the second bend to approximately the west side of Brett
Riverside.
Smith, where it gets to Riverfront Drive. I chose that phase in the scoping because that lets us solve all the drainage issues in the reach and takes it to an existing entrance where we're kind of fixed. So it gives us some flexibility. This also includes, council, the realignment of the intersections. You can see there,
It's been great to do that.
right there, you can see Vineyard comes down now, does this. This will form a T intersection here. It does the same thing there, where it goes to the west. So this phase creates those two T intersections and fixes the safety issues that the residents were pretty animate about when we had the Van Fry meeting with the residents out there. It takes care of those two issues within this first phase.
So are we increasing the width of the asphalt?
Yes,
How much? 28? What do we?
I think there's about 28 there now. It varies 26 to 28.
I was hoping for 34.
Yeah, it's a 50-foot right of way.
Yeah.
So it is.
So it could go to 35, up to 35.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
And if you want me to step out, I'm happy to. So you just tell me.
Stay here.
What was the amended cost, Dustin?
44340.
So from 35 to 44,000.
Yeah.
The arrowhead.
It, from the other jobs I've had engineers bid recently, this is a great deal.
Sorry, I was dealing with, what was the phasing? How many phases are we looking at?
2 to 3.
Okay.
Yeah, at least 3. It could go at more than 3, but first phase would go from Black Rock Circle to Riverfront. Second phase would go from Riverfront to
Heights.
Cottonwood.
Yeah. Cottonwood Heights area.
Cottonwood.
Yeah. Cottonwood.
Then we're improved down till the other side of Town Hall. And the
Old
last
Farm.
phase would go from there to Old Farm.
Old Farm.
And that one could split into 2 phases, depending on money. I think it's going to be available money on the city side will determine
Yeah.
the phase lines. This one is a little bigger phase, but we have developer participation all along the Fry property.
I was going to say,
You've
We're up
got
through
somebody going in there that's going to be doing a lot of it anyway. And so
Yeah.
we're taking advantage of that. The other phase is the phase from Riverfront to Cottonwood is not a real big phase,
Mhm.
but has some issues, drainage issues that we got to
Yeah.
deal with on it. And the other one from Town Hall going west it's primarily street improvements. And so
Well, and if we get our fire station moving forward, that could be included in that work that we're going to do there too. So
Sure.
we may be able to find some monies that would offset from taking it out of our impact fees too. So
Yeah.
this first phase though will kind of set the table for the whole project, I think. with the
Exactly.
residents.
and this is just the engineering we're talking about right
Yeah. Estimated project cost was about 600,000, but I think we can shave that down a lot by doing work in-house.
And the developer, that includes the developer participation side.
Right.
obviously.
Have any of the homeowners in this phase
Was
expressed
Van
the
Fry's
interest
there
to go ahead and
access?
proceed with their
They're gonna be
portion of it?
access.
I know the Andersons have, the Phillips up at the top. He wants to get his done right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's,
Well, it needs to.
at least 2 out of the 6. And I think Lang's maybe they're on their mission. So I haven't had to talk to them lately. And Jones is one of the first steps is just hitting them up door to door. We've got the feedback from the citizen committee. Now it'll be getting the commitments and getting the actual funds put in place. This one is not going to be an SID. It's not going to be bonded for. We're going to collect the money and build it with cash.
Fabulous.
If we don't get all the way down to the end, we'll go as far as we can go.
That's right.
It's,
quite
and again, the end
exciting,
product's
isn't it?
right here in front of us. So on that T right there, and this has nothing to do with this, or would we end up with a stop sign there at the T on Vineyard?
Be a stop sign at the bottom of the hill on Vineyard. The only question I got in my mind is what we do with the addressing on, there's 4 or 5 homes there that are addressed on Vineyard now that may change address to a Claude Drive address, and how we deal with that.
Yeah.
But, and then Claude, just, I think most of you know, maybe the audience, Claude, once we make this turn, Claude goes from here all the way to Santa Clara Drive. So it becomes an outlet for the valley. It'll take some of the burden off of Lava Flow Drive and provide a direct outlet up to Santa Clara Drive from the heart of the valley. Eventually, when those properties to the north develop.
Get it? Guard. Be good to get it going.
Well, this is great. This is, you ready for a motion?
Yes, I'd love that.
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve the RFP in the sum of $44,340 to Rosenberg and Associates for the design of Vineyard Drive.
Second.
Got a motion by Ben and a second by Lena. Any question on that motion, council? This is a money item. Roll call. Ben?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Danny?
Aye.
Wendell?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Dustin.
Been a long time coming, Dustin. I hope we get her done.
Awesome.
That's great.
Okay, item C3, consider awarding the RAP tax funds for the arts, presented by Brock Jacobson.
All right. For RAP tax this year, for ending fiscal year 2021, we collected roughly just over $133,000. And based on the council's direction years ago when RAP tax first was enacted, the council chose to put 20% of that to the arts, the other 80% to Parks and Rec. So of that $133,000, that leaves us just over $26,000 to award in RAP tax funds. We received 4 applications. 2 of those are city applications. So I'll start with the ones that are not city applications. The first one comes from Susie Nelson with the Historical Society. Susie, we've had a number of times, about every year we've had the RAP tax, she has applied. She's asking for $2,500 to continue on Swiss events, Swiss historical things that she's done, bringing with students, bringing them here to the museum, doing little puppet making, things of that nature, some more Swiss heritage stuff. So she's asking for $2,500. The other is from Heidi Lee with Shakespeare in the Park that we've seen the last couple of years across the street in the park there. And I'm going to ask, because I tried to open their email and I wasn't able to, but the exact amount I believe was $13,500. Okay. All right. So they're asking for $13,750 for theirs. We previously have given them up $10,000, I believe. Previously, we'd given them $5,500 a year before. With the pandemic, that didn't happen. But they've also been here for a number of years. And if you've attended their event across the street, and they do a tremendous job. A great event, brings people here to the downtown, and just been a great addition event here in Santa Clara. So you have there's at $13,750, and the Historical Society at $2,500. The 2 from the city come from the Parks Department. One with Sherelle Pontarelli with Parks is submitted one for $4,000. This is for Arbor Day, to help expand Arbor Day with the events that we put on at usually at Goober Park. Events range from kites, trees, popcorn, hot dogs. Brad and Sherelle put on a good event up there. So this will help reduce some of the costs there using RAP tax to help fund that event. And then The other application from Parks with Sherelle is for $10,800. And this is to increase the banners along Santa Clara Drive. We previously have bought some, but we want to continue to create banners for the different seasons and change them out. And so we'd like to increase the number of banners we have and add those different seasons in. So this is about for 60 new banners. And it'll be $10,800. With that, that comes to 30,000. No, I was doing on the about $31,050 in wrap tax applications. We have 26,000. I calculate $26,715 to award. So my recommendation would be to fund the Historical Society fully at $2,500, the Shakespeare in the Park at the full $13,750, the Arbor Day at $4,000, and reduce the parks banners by the amount, roughly $4,000 to get it within the amount that we have eligible to award.
Cheryl, how much are those banners?
$60 for each.
$60 a banner.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Talk to the mic.
Sorry, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, we just want to make sure that we can change them out per season and have some up for Christmas and fall. We did the cows recently and the flowers. And those turned out pretty nice. We'd like to see just more of the new art up.
I think so. Well,
Any money in the Swiss stage budget to buy a few banners?
Well.
I'm just thinking of a way to supplement,
All right.
since he took all the money out of yours,
All right.
we could probably find some other sources to supplement the banners. I'd like to see the banners go all the way to the top of the hill.
Yes, I would too. That would be good.
Mayor, the Arbor Days we're funding in the past, we funded that from
Parks.
the
budget.
other side of RAP that went to the parks, or, I mean, is it coming from the same money essentially? Just,
Yeah.
It just came from the other side of the 80%, not the 20%.
Yeah, in previous years, a lot of previous years, we've had excess of the 20%. We just haven't had the applications. Also, Shakespeare in the Park, that number is increasing as their event has increased in size and what they're doing. So that number has increased for years, but we've had some left over, and that's where, so the parks has applied to use some of those funds of that 20%, which also frees up that other side of the RAP tax to do some other things.
Yeah.
So.
And in the past, and Sherelle can speak to this for the Arbor Day events, she's purchased a lot of things from Amazon, and she's actually have her entire family. They go up and they put the packages and they do everything together. So her family's been a big supplement to make that a success. And we'd like to have the city take a little bit more responsible for that. And I'll have Sherelle's family do all the preparation. We appreciate it though.
It is, so if we don't, in the past, when we haven't used the 20%, does it just fall back over into the parks?
Yes.
Okay.
Council, questions? You've heard the recommendations from staff? Everybody okay with Brock's recommendation? Anybody willing to make a motion?
Can we make up the banners somewhere else?
Yeah, we can. So it would be reducing that 10,800 from there by $4,335. So you're going to be that's $6,500. Yeah. So is what would be left on that side. So, but yeah, definitely can do that on the within other budgets. So.
I think we can probably go out and hit some sponsors up. I'd like to see maybe some BMX banners.
Yeah.
Along the drag, some of the other events that we have in town. Well, maybe the baseball tournaments by a banner or two, Bradley.
We do have Iron Man that wants to put some banners up. I know we're supposed to see maybe some of those in September in support of the Iron Man too. So fill some of the polls for a month.
Well, and the one thing I
concern myself about with the Ironman is if it's going to be in competition with Swiss Days and having the flags for Swiss Days up on those same poles. I mean, I want to support Ironman, but I also don't want to take Swiss Days and put it in a back seat to the Ironman.
Yeah.
I think we have the ability to locate where those banners go. So we can push them out maybe to the edges and
Okay.
away from the downtown. I love the cows.
I do too.
My grandkids really like the cows. Okay, council, questions? Any more discussion?
I move that we approve staff's recommendation for the use of the RAP tax funding.
Second it.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Wendell to approve the RAP tax funding as presented by the staff. Brock, would you read those so they just get in the motion?
Yes. We have Susie Nelson with Historical Society at 2,500. Shakespeare in the Park, Heidi Lee for 13,750. Santa Clara City with Arbor Day for 4,000, and Santa Clara City for street banners at $6,465 for a total of $26,715.
With that stated, include that in the motion.
Wendell, okay with your second?
Yes.
Any questions, council? You have a motion. Do you have a second? Roll call vote. It is a money item. Wendell?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. Keep up the good work out there, guys. Appreciate you. What's the play going to be next year? Fun. That's the one with the fairies, right? Thanks. Okay, item number 4, consider approval of purchase of a 4th generator. Gary?
Good evening. At least you're sitting up there. I don't need a stool to see you today. Yes, I'm just here to seek approval for a purchase of the 4th generator that we spoke about last week. I know council had a few questions on a few of the items. Let me get to the page and I'll try to answer some more of those questions. I know Ben Shakespeare had asked about the cost of the equipment in our strike price to run. And we said, no, we do not include that in the strike price just because you have to think of the generator as just an asset to the city, just like a power pole or a power line or transformer. And if it's just not feasible to include the cost in our runtime, or we'd never run. We've got a slide that Shane with Wheeler Machinery put together that does show that. So at least we have that information.
Tell me the slide you want.
That one right there.
Okay.
So this slide shows the different percentages. So the first column says less the capital. That's what our strike price is right now. And the little column on the far left is the gas prices from $2.50 up to $5. And then let's see, the third column over is 100% utilization, and that's figured at 8,760 hours a year. So if we ran them pretty much 24/7, that would be 100% utilization. We only run our generators for peaking in the summer. Right now, we've had our generators for 15 years, and we only have 5,550 hours on them. So we're not running them at all. That comes out to about a 4% utilization. So we're only running our generators at a 4%. The lowest column clear to the right shows a 20% utilization, and you can see what the the cost increases the less you run them if you figure in your capital. So I don't know what 4% utilization would be as far as our cost to run, but you can see at the 20%, it's at an average gas price of $3, you're at $74 a megawatt hour to run. So that's, I hope that answers your question, Ben, on, you can at least kind of see if we use the capital cost of the equipment in our figure to run. So, and then another question that you had, Ben, was about the average gas cost, and that's that bottom, the averages. So 2016 up to 2021, that's kind of the average for the year of what the gas prices have been. And it's usually right around $2 to $3. And that's kind of what we figure our strike price on. Any more questions on that? Anybody?
Council,
Okay.
questions?
I guess on the utilization, then if we're only utilizing 4% of our, I mean, we're basically utilizing it in peak loads, June, July, August.
Yeah.
2 o'clock to 6 o'clock maybe, or 4 to 8 or whatever.
It all depends on the load. Sometimes it's like, usually it's about 11 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. So we run about 12 hours a day. And sometimes it starts in May, end of May, mostly in June. And then sometimes maybe a week or two into September.
Yeah.
Depending on temperature.
And I guess why it's,
prices.
I'm just running the numbers, and the reason we're only at 4%, even though it seems like we're using it more, we're just picking up the difference of the peak then.
Yes.
So we're only picking up, even though we may be running them a lot of hours, we're only picking up a small percentage or 25% of our power load that we need. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think one of the reasons that we are doing this is not necessarily to take care of peak loads and stuff as much as it is if the power goes down, the supply is gone, we have the ability to run parts of the city periodically with the generators. It's not just a peak loading situation. And so to me, there's a dual, it's kind of like water, having a redundant source of water. This gives us some redundancy in our power supply that gives us an opportunity to keep the city up and running.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. With the addition of this fourth generator, we'd be able to keep a larger portion of the city on during a blackout situation. So yeah, it's critical. What other questions we had from last week? The impact fee analysis. The mayor had asked about the impact fees study, and we did get a portion of that sent to us. And can you scroll to that one, Brock? I don't know if it's before this one. It might be before this one.
You have Bo Shams from UFS. Impact fee.
It was above.
It's back at the beginning.
It's up right there.
This one.
Mark, are you available? Are you on?
Yep, I'm here. Gary.
Okay. The council had the question of why with an extra $2.5 million for another generator, why that would not affect our rate increase. Could you just explain that, please?
Sure. I first want to start that I know you haven't seen our financial projection. We recently completed a cost of service study and a financial projection for the city of Santa Clara. And that was as part of the study, we originally assumed the purchase of one of the generators. And we completed a rate track, which is actually the one on the bottom. And we set the rate track of 2.5%. Now, the electric department is relatively financially stable from the standpoint that your debt to equity ratio is very strong, about 35% debt leveraged in debt. Your debt coverage ratio is also very strong. It's up in the neighborhood of around 3 times coverage, where the minimum that we look at from a bond rating standpoint is about 1.4. Well, originally we set the rate track at about 2.5%, and then we were requested to add or look at the purchase of the additional generator, about 2.5 million, that would be financed by debt. And what occurred is, because even though we're issuing debt, we have adequate capacity as far as our debt to equity ratio to absorb that debt. And we have adequate debt coverage ratio to also absorb that debt. And so as a result, it did not change our recommended rate track. Now, as part of our analysis, because it was kind of, we did not look at the potential savings that that additional generator could occur from reducing peak demands and operating when market prices were high. Now, with that said, if there was no additional savings at all from that, it's possible that at some point in the future, it could have a small negative impact on rates, but over the next 5 years, it doesn't appear to have any impact. That our current revenues that we're charging can easily absorb that additional debt service on that generator without causing a rate increase. So hopefully that helped to explain why it's not causing a change to our recommended rate adjustments.
Mark, this is Rosenberg, am I reading it right that we're projecting some rate, the 2.5% rate adjustment this year and, well, the next 3 years after this year?
That is correct. That is correct. And I know you haven't had the opportunity, I haven't had the opportunity to talk to the council about our recommended rate track. But originally, before this generator came up, we were recommending at that time a 2.5% adjustment. That was just a few weeks ago. We completed the study. And so we haven't had the opportunity to talk to council about it yet. Then we were requested to look at the purchase of the additional generator. And when we added that in with the corresponding debt service, it didn't cause any need to really adjust our rate track. But yes, we are looking at 2.5% increases in electric rates over the next 3 years.
Council, questions?
So what's the actual rate? We've got a 2.5% rate increase. Am I
What will the rates
reading
actually
that
go to?
right? What's that?
Is that what you're asking, where the?
Yeah, where the rate will be in 3 years.
So, well, Mark, Mark has those. We've seen those preliminary numbers. As he said, we spoke with them, but I don't have a hard copy of where they're at, but the 2.5% is on the usage rates is where the 2.5%, if I remember, Mark, and correct me if I'm wrong, is not on the base rate. The base rate would stay at $20. It would just be a 2.5% adjustment on usage rates.
That is correct. Primarily, it would go on the usage rate, the 2.5%, because your customer charges would look like they were in really good shape. So, but that's something, our plan is that sometime in the near future, we'll come to the city council with 3 things basically for you to review. One is this financial projection that you're looking at a summary of. The other one is the cost of service study that looks at how much it costs to provide service to each rate class, and compared to the projected revenues from each class. And that tells us how much each rate class increase or decrease is needed for that class to meet the cost of service requirement. We then do a rate design where we adjust the rates slowly. We don't want to cause adverse substantial rate impacts on customers, but to slowly move the rate components closer to cost of service, as well as the customer classes. And those are something that we'll review with council, I think, over the next month, I believe. I think toward the end of August, I believe it is.
Mayor, this is Jack. Can you hear me?
Jack who?
I
Jack
think
Taylor? Jack Taylor's on the line with us?
I'm here, guys. It's good to hear your
Somebody run in
voices.
my office and get the head, the Jack Taylor head. Welcome back, Jack.
Thank you. I miss you guys. I think that one of the things that's really interesting, as we look at this study, if we would have took his recommendations back 5 or 6 years ago when we did this first study, and just did a 1% and kept it going, we wouldn't have had to go with the 2.5% at this time. And I'm wondering, if it wouldn't be wise for the council, after we have these 2.5% increases, then go back to 1% each year. And then we have this study done every 5 or 6 years to make sure that we're still on track. And if we need to reduce it, we reduce it. But that way you don't have to, you could automatically just accept a 1% increase every year. And I think it would be a lot less stressful on the council and those, the residents. So I don't know, it's something to think about, but.
It's a good idea. We've talked about doing it with, we did it with water. And we've had several conversations at some point in time in the future, if we have to. I know a lot of the cities have been looking at small, very small incremental property tax increases, but having them happen every year to keep up with the cost of services provided. But I think the small annual increase is a good way to look at it over time. I agree.
So quick question, and Jack, this might be for you as well. Gary, both of you. Why not run the I mean, if we're purchasing power at an equal rate that we can produce it, why not just run our generators more and use that revenue instead of going out on the open market and purchasing it to generate more revenue within the city? Isn't there times when if we're at break even, we're buying out on the open market? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or somewhere close there. I think you said it was if it was within $10 a megawatt hour, I believe is.
Yeah. We can. We try not. I think a lot of it was just to save the hours on the equipment. We are really low on our hours where they could be, but it is operation and just maintenance on the machines that you'd run into. And then it all depends on gas prices too. It depends on gas prices and what market's doing and if anybody's willing to buy it. I don't know, Jack, you have anything else on that?
Ben, the reason we haven't ran them over the last few years is because the market has been so cheap. It hasn't really been close. And so that's one of the reasons. But I think you'll see when Doug gets up and gives his presentation and what's happening out there in the world today, it's changing so fast. We're having so much growth, and there's no more generation. There's no coal. There's nothing being built to cover all this new load. There's a lot of solar. There's a lot of wind. There's other things like that, but there's no base capacity being built. And so you're going to see these numbers go up higher and higher and higher, and you're going to see Gary run these generators more and more, especially for peak, but maybe even some for base load. And I think you're going to see it, and I know Doug will tell you the same thing. So, and they're, like Denny said, they're wonderful for an emergency. We'd have almost 9 megawatts of resource sitting in the generator building that if we lost our radio feed into the city, he can open that circuit up and he can black start. And, we've got quite a bit of commercial now, and we've got a big store and other things that we need to try to keep on. And I think Gary could do a pretty good job at rotating the circuits. And then in some cases, he might be able to carry the whole city, depending on the month. So there's advantages, but it is expensive. once they're paid for, you've always got them in your back pocket.
Well, I think that was, what power does. That was my thought, was as I laid there after our last meeting and thought about this, just thinking, well, gee, if those numbers are close and we're looking to generate to help pay these off quicker, we've got, what'd you say, 5,000 hours over 15 years?
Yeah.
And I believe it was 80,000 hours before we hit a major overhaul or something like that. And so I was like, geez, these are, at the rate we're going, we're gonna
We'll never
get 100 years out of these things.
Well,
Run, as Jack said, they're running more now.
Yeah.
We've already broke our high peak this year. Again, already, they'll run more. As Gary said, we're running them more already. They'll continue to run more. They'll be used more than they have. It's just with our growth, we're going to be forced to use them. And as other plants for base load go offline, we're going to need them more. It's going to be more of a necessity.
Well, another thing too, as far as more redundancy with the peak, we only have 2 generators, and both of them have been off and on running this week, the last couple of weeks, for maintenance issues. We had a cooling line that broke, and we had to wait 2 or 3 days to get parts for it. So we were down to 1 generator, and with the extra generators, we could at least still be shaving that peak in those high load hours and have a little bit more redundancy as far as that goes.
So Mark, according to what you've been saying, is the debt service that we're going to incur in purchasing the 4th generator really is not going to increase rates, nor does it affect our bonding. Is that correct?
That is correct, by the looks of the financial projection. And the reason, again, is your debt coverage ratio to start with was very strong. So with the $2.5 million in additional debt, it really didn't affect the coverage ratio that much. It did decrease it from about 3.5 to 2.5. But again, you're relatively low debt utility. And even though we need some rate adjustments to kind of tweak to keep the utility financially stable, that small amount of debt relative to the assets of the utility has a really minor impact. And the potential savings to the utility, which we did not take that into account, but there's a very good possibility that you'll see savings with respect to not just lower energy costs at certain hours of the day, but the less need to purchase capacity from the market also. So you're going to see savings with that additional generator. And it's not going to have any, at least in the short term, it's not going to have any impact. In the long term, it's possible, if none of those savings occur, that you might have a small rate adjustment. But again, that's offset too, because I always look at a purchase of a generator as like an insurance policy, because you protect yourself against bad things happening in the market. You protect the community from the standpoint of reliability or improved reliability. You have less likelihood, and I hate to use a example like what recently happened, but you have less likelihood of the exposure like in Texas that occurred, because you have that internal generation. And also, to be honest with you, with the advent of renewable generation related to solar, and I don't want to waste too much time talking about that part of it, but that's an intermittent resource. And these peaking units are being purchased around the country because of that intermittency that occurs in solar to protect the reliability of the system. So there's a lot of benefits that from a reliability standpoint, that the customers would see, irrespective of whether or not there's actually potential savings in the future, which there's a high possibility that would occur.
But part of this, we're committing to that rate increase, so as part of the bond. Is that my understanding that right? Or is that just a projected rate increase?
This rate increase would go into effect without the purchase of the generator anyway. This, like I said, the bottom.
2.5% is going to be included.
That's the recommendation now.
That's regardless. Before we even told them about the fourth generator, the 2.5% is what they were going to would recommend anyways.
Over 3 years. So 7.5%
Yeah.
in 3 years is what we're recommending to increase the power.
Yeah. That's, like I say, separate of the fourth generator.
Which if you're talking a home of $150, you're talking $3.75 a month. I mean, after 3 years, when the 2.5% fully hits. So you're not, it's not to a fixed income, it probably is a concern, but.
But we're talking 2.5% a year or over 5 years or 3 years.
That's
2.5% a year.
Per year. So 7.5%.
Over
So
three. But part of-
$150 a month is.
Yeah, part of the reason why I think it's so high is because how many years have we haven't
no
raised it?
increase.
No increase.
Yeah.
3 years.
We haven't increased it the last 3. We probably, like Jack's saying, we probably should have kept that 1% annual increase in there and let it keep going. Then you wouldn't have to do part of that 2.5 has nothing to do with generators, just catching up.
Yeah. But power's been, I mean, from what I understand, outside of the peak, and I think Jack hit on this, last year we were buying solar out of California for 35. Is that what we were buying it for? If I remember right.
I don't know, Jack,
you want to hit on that? Wasn't that, I mean, we were buying it at,
Well,
that's not going to be the case. I understand that.
But it varies. The market's been predominantly stable, and then it has peaks.
Yeah.
And extreme peaks once in a while due to, events like the fires or like last year in Texas and all that stuff. But for the most part, it's been fairly stable with the gas prices, right, Jack?
yeah, California was long and in resource. And so we got the advantages of that. And so the market was cheaper. We rode on that, on their backs for quite a while, but that stuff's just not going to be there much longer. So you're going to see higher prices, and that's what we're seeing today.
So Brock, I have a question. If we look at rolling it into the current debt obligation and not extending the amortization for the extra interest expense, can we support $500,000 a year in debt payments with the existing operating income?
Yeah, based on our current base rate, with our base rate brings in just under $700,000 annually, would roughly go to covering that debt. So, and if it wouldn't, then through this rate analysis with UFS that Mark does, we would be doing a rate adjustment higher to be able to handle that.
And the current income doesn't include the 2.5% that we're looking for anyways, right? So that would just be absorbed into that.
Yeah, that's current. Our $20 base charge, based on roughly 2,900 connections, creates us just under 700,000. So
You're also getting some from your impact fees to pay for them, as long as you continue to have growth.
yes, correct. We can use impact fees to help pay, like we did for the first generator, paying half of it with impact fees. So.
And those are we've got those available sitting ready to go.
Yes, we have impact fees here ready to do. We didn't, on the third generator, we split it in half bonding and half impact fees, because we also know we have major project in the South Hills that we're going to have to pay for as well. So we held some impact fees aside for that project to help pay. That one, hopefully we can pay for totally, hopefully maybe in with cash and won't have to go bond. So.
And that'll create more redundancy for the system too. The outage we had a month ago, if we'd have had that loop line through Green Valley and that was all done, probably would have switched right over to that.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have had the outage. We're still
It's just.
And that's my big concern is we're still dependent on a couple of dead end lines.
What's gonna happen down the road?
The big dead end line that comes down from Central that everybody's dependent on.
Yeah.
And the line that comes over from Snow Canyon that the city's hooked into. Once we get that Green Valley loop, now we've got a loop on the system. If that solves one of our problems, the dead end problems, hopefully UAMPS can work and get that other one fixed. That one scares me every time I look up and see smoke on the mountain.
Yeah.
Because I know if it goes down, a lot of people are going down and it's going to be for a while.
Well, I guess at least I'll be in the same boat.
Yeah. And that's where the generator can really help because it
Yeah.
could keep emergency services going. It could keep Harmon's going. It could maybe have rolling blackouts where you got some power once in a while. And this time of year, he said when that power went down that evening, I had people knocking on my door, not just calling, coming to my house to make sure my power was off.
We ought to put a generator on your house just to get at them. So,
Did you flip the switch to make sure? it's on?
No, I was sitting there in the dark. I said, come on in. But they showed up. And that's the first time we've been out for any length. And we were only out 30 minutes
Yeah.
right?
Almost not quite an hour, I don't think.
Yeah. And I was like nothing compared to what it used to be.
Every time a wind blew,
Yeah, our system's a lot more reliable.
that was Jack's fault.
So anyway, any other questions? It's been a good discussion.
Are we looking for a motion?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe we'd like a motion tonight as I think Gary probably stated and Shane from Wheeler know that we have a time frame. If we want to get the current pricing, we have to let them know by tomorrow. So
So how does that work with the bond that we've already initiated on the third one?
we would go out and bond, create a new bond, and then we'd be deciding we'll bring Mark Anderson, get him with the numbers and see the best scenario on which way to bond. The bond, we're not gonna have to pay for the machine for, I don't know when we'd actually have to pay for it, but we've got 60, 90 days to go through the bonding process. And I don't think we'll be having chance of not even paying until calendar year 2022. So if we
Yeah.
get a,
And
Yeah, sure.
We like the idea of finishing up the project and allowing you to be pleased with the project before you pay for it. So we hope this project will be finished up before your run season next year. And then we would hope for payment probably sometime around May or whenever that is that we finish the project up.
so we're not in a rush on getting the bonding. The only thing that would trigger a rush on getting a bond done would be rates. Do we, where are rates gonna go? That's the only thing because bonding now, like we did on the other one, we did the bond early to get the rate, a good rate and do that. Yet now we're paying interest on that. So, and as we say, we might be making a payment, not actually paying that till May. So that the only thing would push us to say, hey, do you want to get the bond done early? Is where do we think rates are going to go?
Well, the other good thing is we've got an air quality permit in the process that we can just add this to it rather than start a new process. So
Yes, and just for an update on that permit, I got word today that it's hopefully should be done next week.
Oh.
So,
if we're looking for a motion, I move that we approve the purchase of a fourth generator based on the idea of redundancy for the city in case of outages and at the same time for peak to offset costs.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Wendell to approve the purchase of a fourth generator as presented and discussed tonight. Any question on that motion? This is a big money item. Wendell,
Aye.
Denny,
Aye.
Lena,
aye.
Ben?
Aye, but I had some more I wanted to visit on. But I'll visit. I'm supportive of this, but yes, aye.
Okay, you guys have it. Thank you, council. Thank you, Gary.
Mayor, can I didn't get a I just want everyone to keep in mind, we have some big bonding projects coming up. I support the purchase of this. But I mean, we've got a major street here in front that's probably going to require a bond. We've got a fire station we're looking at that's going to, that's my only reservation in this. And again, I would hope we can, and I guess it's a double-edged sword because you don't want power rates to go. I would hope we can run them more and recoup more of that cost, but I just, that's a big expense for a city of our size. And again, our power has gone out one time in 3 years. And I say that, I wish I had a crystal ball, but I guess if the power is off for 3 days, I don't know. I don't know what goes. I think we've got the power now to run our commercial as it is, but I just want that to go on the record. So I support the project, but we do have some major bonding, and it scares me to death to look at that.
So Ben, let me try to help you with that. Agree with you. We have some potential projects out there to bond. The projects that you do discuss, fire station, if it's Vineyard Drive, those projects would be in the general fund, which would be completely separate of looking at revenue wise to the power. The power, they look at the revenue solely off of that.
Yep.
Those funds aren't commingled, can't be. So when we look to go look at those, this will not be even factored in of our bonding capacity. This is solely looking at what the power fund generates and what it can handle. And we do those from the general fund side. It'd only be looking at those. So I do understand your concern, but know that they are looked at totally separate as to what bonding capacity we have and what we can handle with our current rates and revenues. So just to help you understand that this won't affect what we can do on the other side, because those are general fund.
No, I understand that. I think city-wise, we're in a good, and understand it comes from the enterprise fund and all that, but it will, it's even at 1% a year, if we were to take that, you're taking, I mean, same thing on the water. It's just, the gap of cost of living is stretching significantly in every department, not just, and so that's, again, I know we need it. I feel good having it, but just, we do have some major projects. And again, I recognize where they come from. Just, it's.
Hey, just one other thing. Jackie brought it to my attention. If we wanted to, the city could ask UAMPS to bond for the generator, and you wouldn't have to have it on your books. It's just another option.
It's still it's not on the books, but it's still a payment we're making UAMPS at that point. I mean, or is that, I mean, again, it's like my mom co-signing on my loan, but I'm still responsible for the loan. I want you to know, I support this. I like this. It was a lot to stomach for the first, and then to have round two come around 3 months later is, but I recognize where power is going, and I know where our coal's going. It's all going to Guatemala. Their full cities coal powered, and all the third world countries are coal powered. So we're going to pay a lot for energy. Why they get all the cheap energy?
Yeah, that's, like I said, if we had the crystal ball, we'd know, but
I know.
It's, to me, from what we have seen, it just looks like power costs are just going to keep rising. And
well, there's a lot of generation coming offline.
Yes.
I mean, bottom line, and it's, you would think we would figure it out, but it's, when you go dark in California, you think you'd go, hey, maybe that, but you don't. And so,
yeah. And
at the end of the day, everybody, the person that hurts the worst is those that can't afford it anyway. So that's I think my big concern is this. I know it seems like a little, but a lot.
Yep.
Okay, well, number 5, UAMPS update on carbon-free power project Presented by Gary. Doug Hunter's here. Welcome, Doug. Always good to see you. Gary?
I'll just let Doug take over and give an update on the carbon-free power project.
Glad you took your vacation time to come down to a nice, cool.
Yeah. Well, I came, I left from Teasdale, Wayne County, and it was 67 degrees when I left. So. It is a little warm, but it shows you the value of electricity, right? I mean, when heat here makes it tolerable. Yeah, well, I'm going to go through this presentation. I don't want to take too much of your time. Let me preface the whole concept of where we're at in this carbon-free power project. The way the power sales contracts are set up, the participants have off ramps, for lack of a better term, euphemistic term. It's not contractually, it's an exit date or a reduction date or increase date, but they are triggered by a change in the budget and plan of finance. And so, we just said the project management committee last month approved a new budget and plan of finance that would take us through January of 24. That is a very significant date. This project that would put us right on the cusp of applying to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for our combined construction and operating license agreement. Put us there. We'll have a class 2, and I'll go through these again here so you can see a class 2 engineering estimate, which is just one step away from going to bid, if you will. On the thing, class 1 is that same estimate, but now it's got vendor quotes inside of it. So it's a very, very significant date. But a couple of things I want to point out that have changed since we were looking at this last time. The last time I think there was a report coming into you. We've signed 3 key contracts that have incredibly de-risked this project, and that has been the objective of UAMPS for the participants, is to de-risk it to the extent possible through the development phase going into this. And so the first one is the Department of Energy cost award. And that's a little less than $1.4 billion over it's a 9-year period, but it's heavily front loaded in that. So it only represents 25% of the entire cost of the project, if you will, out there, but it's almost all the money comes in the first 4 years. And so that's through this development phase, and I'll explain how that works in terms of de-risking. That means the cost that UAMPS has to shoulder will be significantly reduced. The second agreement that we've signed is called the Development Cost Reimbursement Agreement. And that's between us and NuScale, the vendor for the reactors. And this does a number of different things in it, around a lot of technological aspects and that, but the key concept inside this agreement is what we consider or call an economic competitive test. So one of the problems we believe anyway, or UAMPS believes, is that it's happened with past nuclear projects, is that there's been runaway costs. And we just don't want to shoulder that risk at all, zero. And it's been a long effort to get this done to his satisfaction, but it's been worth the patience. Patience has paid off here, and we've now got that. So what that means is that through this next phase, if we were to exceed $58 a megawatt hour at the Antelope substation, is where that pricing's at, in 2020 dollars, NuScale would have to reimburse us 100% of our costs that we've outlaid. So let me go back through that, coupled with the Department of Energy grant. So right through this phase, we're looking at it's about $300 million that we'll be spending through January of 24. There, UAMPS' share, which we refer to as net development costs, would be $67 million of that. So it's a significant DOE. You can see just that amount is about 20%. 80% would be paid by the federal government. And then if we go through our levelized cost of energy model, it's an average cost over 40 years, and it includes everything. There's nothing left out. It has operational costs, debt, decommissioning. There's really nothing left. We're very confident we've got a complete work schedule and a list of items out there that NuScale would reimburse us the $67 million. we'd have that option. It's really a put, if you will, if I can use that kind of, that is, if we decide to cancel the project because the cost is greater than $58 a megawatt hour and $20, that we can put the project to NuScale and they have to reimburse us. That's the cost to get the project. That goes through it. That's the third one is this engineering procurement construction development agreement, where we'll eventually sign an engineering procurement and construction agreement. But we're really trying to work it as close to a fixed cost contract with Fluor Corporation out of Dallas, who would be the contractor. And they just don't know enough information to provide that type of risk to us at this point in time. So that's why we're entering into the development agreement coupled with the DCRA so that we can get the additional engineering on the balance of plant. The modules are pretty well engineered. They are licensed through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission already. And so we believe those estimates are really good on the modules themselves, but it's the balance of plant that hasn't been fully brought. It's at a class 4 engineering level estimate right now. We want to get it down to that class 2 that would go through, and that's would allow us to do that. And then if we keep on with the agreement, we go into a development agreement. And you can ask questions at any time if you would.
What's the $58 at 20? What's that number? What are they anticipating per year increase in that number? So
Okay, that number is capped. That number does not increase. There is an exception. If UAMPS makes a change order, they have the right to renegotiate that number with us. But any changes on their side, any reduction in the Department of Energy grant, any increase in interest rates, that number does not change.
So when this comes online at 2029, I believe,
Correct.
is that correct?
Correct.
$58 a megawatt hour or is that going to increase? That won't increase because of.
Well, it's in $2020. We bring it back, we inflate it back down to $2020. So
What's I guess the inflation rate, or is it?
Well, we do have, there is an inflation rate that is set in there right now. We basically have about 2.5%. So we're significantly, well, right now, I think we're about 3. I think the Fed came out this morning and said we're on a 3% run, but they don't believe it's going to last. We'll have to go through and look at that. But to your point, if I could, just more specifically, the engineering estimate, the inflation rate in the model is just for model purposes, right? We'll get actual estimates coming in of the cost out there. It's not just a model at that time. As they refine the cost, the things that'll change back and forth. And so I look at the inflation rate like at this point, like a contingency, if you will. It's just to add it in to be conservative in the price estimate to constantly, increase prices out there. And at 2.5% is what's in the model.
Okay.
There's been a couple of other significant movements on the project. The largest one is that this module, the 77-foot tall module, 15-foot diameter, it started off at 50 megawatts electric. I mean, it's all based on heat content. But anyway, it was based on an average heat content of about 160 megawatts thermal, if you will, which would produce about 50 megawatts electric per module. And that's what they got licensed through the NRC. Since more engineering has been going on and they've gotten better handle on this, without changing the module, they can run it up to a higher heat level. They can run it up to 250 megawatts thermal. And at that level, we could get 77 megawatts out of each module. So we have the things that is going to go through a licensing with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that NuScale is undertaking, not our costs. And that is called a standard design application. And that is ready to go out there. The way we work with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, let me just quickly state this, is we do pre-engagement. So we sit down with the staff, and it isn't just like a discussion across the table. We have to produce documentation on why these things will operate the way we say they're going to operate. They get to test it. They get to ask us questions back, moving around until they're satisfied. They don't give us a final answer until we make the application, and then they spend the time again to go through it. But we've been doing pre-engagement. This is NuScale's methodology. It's worked really, really well. And so we already know that they've got, there's no concerns, at least we're not hearing any concerns out of the NRC on operating if we would desire to at a full 77 megawatts, is 250. And also in that we're going to be looking at reducing the control room operators. So right now under, you got to realize that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission coming out of the old Atomic Energy Commission way back when is really focused, it's all just focused on safety. And so they wanted a reactor crew, an operator crew for every module. And we just you'd have to have like a gymnasium, right? I mean, to operate them all in tandem. And so the NRC is now convinced that we only have to have one regular crew cycling for even up to 12 modules. We don't have to have all these other guys, but that has to be licensed, and that's going to be in the standard application. And then there's a few other things associated with certain bad, negative effects. So that is emergencies and things like that on how that they want to get through. Like if we lost the cooling capability immediately, what they do. That's gone through on the license of 50. They just want to see some of it. These things are not, there's nothing that we see as a showstopper, but they have to get that. And that's under the DCRF. They do not get that. That is a default, just as if we did not make an economic competitive test, and they'd have to reimburse us our money. So we don't stand any risk on that licensing coming through. What that's allowed us to do is we were looking at 12 modules. That's 924 megawatts at 77 maximum output. It's just too much for what we've got interest in. We don't have 924 megawatts of interest. And so we looked at a smaller configuration, and that's also going to be in this design application out here. We can go down to 2 now. You can have 2, 4, 6. They come in pairs of 2s because they're going to be built like a V6, a V8, V4, that sort of thing, side by side. That's the way the module or the reactor building works. And 6 seems to be the proper amount for us right now. We believe we'll have full subscription by the end of the year at the 462 megawatt total capability. There has been discussion. We are actually a little, in terms of interest, we have way more interest now, which is a good problem, I think, to have, than we have kilowatts. And so there is a chance, if necessary, we might go back to 8. But that's what's caused the $58 to go from $55 to $58. It's the major reason. That is, the cost only came down 20%, but the output of the facility came down 25%. And so we just don't get, and things don't scale across on costs. The COLA costs, the crane, there's just certain things that don't change in that. But we do feel like it allows us to hit 100% subscription very quickly. It also, we're staying on schedule for 2029 online date to come on. And that's another key for us. We might be even ahead of that by going to the smaller modules, a smaller thing to build. They're actually looking at possibly only 2 years of field construction on that. Right now, we've got 3 years set into the schedule. So, and then one of the things, the way the levelized cost model is working right now is that we're coming in at about just a little over $56. So the 58's a cap, right, there, but the actual levelized cost of energy model over 40 years is showing us $56.40 with dry cooling, and we can get into that in a minute, versus wet cooling. So we're in a very comfortable range to go through. I think I covered every one of those points that we've got up there.
Doug, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Economy of scale, when NuScale upgraded the electrical output from 60 to 77, why did you want to go back? Instead of having that, you wanted to size down to a 6? Is that, I don't understand.
That's
okay.
That's based on subscription too.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah. It's just. It's just a set so that we know we can get the 462. We've got about. I've got a good. I mean, as of today, I'm closer to 600 megawatts of interest. We'll go through this in a second. I don't know if all that's going to show up, right? And I don't want to run the risk. You see, part of this, it's a very complex project, and the risk, we've really defined risk in detail, all these different risk items. And I just don't want to increase subscription risk to us. That would be, that's a risk that that would cause us potentially to cancel for convenience. We would not get any reimbursement if we did that, you see. So I feel much more confident, and when I talk to the project management committee, There'll be other deployments down the road. This is not the end all anyway, as you've been talking earlier about power supply out there. This is a start. And once these things go, they're built in the factory. The next licensing for the next one will be way less time than we've had to take out there, because we've cut the, and that's why the Department of Energy is supporting this so heavily. They want this to be successful. And you've heard Pacific Corp announce their sodium reactor in Wyoming. So we've got other company now out there that's going to be coming on. And then also the X Energy announcement up at Energy Northwest in Pasco, Washington, another small modular reactor. So these things are starting to bubble up, and we'll have other chances to get additional power supply. This one,
I'm still back to the module.
Okay.
So if the output of the module, it's maxed at 77,
yes,
and what you're talking about is a reduction in
a number of modules,
size.
Okay. So instead of 12 modules or 8 modules, we'll have 6 modules, 3 on a side.
Smaller building.
Yes, it's a much smaller. That's again a part of the reduction in the cost. Is this is a steel box underground filled with water. That's really what this building is. It's not a containment vessel, right? The module itself is the containment. That's the quote big concrete dome. It's just that outer skin of that module. But this is a safety license by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission facility. We have to have it. The roof has to be hardened against aircraft impact, and we have to design it to seismic categories, which we're doing we're just designing it to seismic 1. It's just why not, and you get over that. And so it's a pretty fixed thing. You can't really expand it. It is not something you're going to be building an extra bedroom off of, the thing. It's going to be, we could put another deployment in up there. We've got 1,000 acres. If we could do another one up there, or there could be one at one of the coal plants that have shut down. And that's something we're very interested in pursuing as well down the road, like over in Emery County, Millard County, New Mexico. These sites that we have, these brownfield sites, will be very attractive for this. It's so safe. These things are so safe, and they only take 35 acres of land. And you've already got the facilities, the transmission there, all that, you're recycling those brownfield sites. And we really believe that will be the next deployments that we'll start to see. So I'm not too worried about what goes on afterwards. It's just, this is the first one, right? We're right at the edge. We're right at the tip of the spear, and we really want to get it done. That's the main thing. Get this done, get it proved out, and move on. And this de-risk, by getting smaller, it does de-risk the project. Again, it's not as straightforward quantitative, but it does reduce costs. It does reduce construction time. Those are all key components of risk mitigation and management.
Has the change in the administration done anything on your permitting, or are things still moving along as you've expected?
Yes, and that's a great question. So we started in the Obama administration, went through great support through the Trump administration, and we have the same. There's been no fall off of support from the Biden administration, and all those Congresses that we've gone through since those 3 things, they have been incredibly supportive on both sides of the aisle. This is something that brings America back into the leadership role in nuclear in the world. And that is a big drive for us, not so much, right? I mean, we're trying to get power, reliable power at a good cost. But for the federal government, that's why they want to support us. They want to get back in that leadership role, nuclear, not let Russia, if you will, or China. I know that sounds, but it's really true. I mean, I get this all the time. Each secretary, I've gone through now 4 secretaries of energy. I'm on my 4th out here, and they all give me the same thing about leadership. And they really, I was just on a conference this morning explaining things, just got the same attributes. Everybody's thanking us for, being willing to move on this. But like I said, we have to have it. We really have to have the risk managed, or we're not going to do it. We're just.
Then you talk about these other sides again, like other technologies that have come down as you go out and build the first one. It's very expensive. Do you anticipate if they do? Again, I love this technology and love everything about it, but do you anticipate that development cost, adding additional sites, will those costs be less? Will they simply just kind of follow the status quo?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And so what we did, we went under an exercise to determine what would nth of a kind cost be. And that's really what you're asking, right? I mean, you go through all those curves and stuff like that. So nth of a kind, according, and I concur with this, is $65 a megawatt hour in 2020. So we're underneath that, if you will. Now, at a brownfield site where you've got transmission already in there, we're not building a lot of transmission ourselves on this. It's just really a line from the plant out to the substation. But that would, maybe knock it down $1 or so, the fact that the workforce can be trained at a coal plant, the truck drivers, the power plant workers, the coal miners, 85% of the jobs in this do not need a 4-year degree. So we can train them right, just take those people and it'll have ad valorem tax onto it. And so that's sort of, for the counties that you put these in. Up at the Idaho National Lab, we're on a national federal reserve up there, and we've got a user fee that's in this cost that we have to pay to the government for that and the lease payment, but we don't pay property tax. So, so yeah, I think they may change, but it's really just the inventor of this technology, Dr. Jose Reyes, up out of Oregon State University, really came up with this modularization concept out there. He says, well, you could basically build these reactors by going to Home Depot, ordering, I mean, there's nothing exotic on them or something like that. So we don't have, that same potential, right? I mean, it's steel, it's different types of steel and uranium costs. There's not a lot of things that are going to really microchips did or something like that. It doesn't really lend itself too much to that. And so right now NuScale is selling the second deployment at basically $65 a megawatt hour. Right there. So we're even got a benefit even with associated with it. Let's see. So yeah, I think I've hit all those things again. You see all of that. I think if I can hit here, I'll go over here, de-risking. I've gone through a lot of this already. There's the 309 million versus the 67 that would be our cost through January of 2024. And that $67 million is subject to refund to us if we cancel the project due to the fact that the price is greater than $58 per megawatt hour. The participants do not have to pay anything. This is all being capitalized. That's part of what we're doing. We're borrowing the money. This is typical what UAMPS does in a project. We'll borrow all the money, and then once it goes commercial and starts producing kilowatt hours, you start paying for kilowatt hours. That's how you repay it. And that's set for a 40-year. It's a 40-year anticipated bond life that we've got associated with this. We also have the department, we're working with the Department of Energy on this one through their loan program office. And this will allow us to tap into funds that have already been set aside and appropriated by Congress years ago, and either guarantee the rate that'll give us a better rating in the bond market for 70% of the cost, or get a direct loan at Treasury rates with 25 basis points above Treasury. It's another big de-risker, and that's in the process of being applied for right now as well. Let's see if I got anything else. I think that probably covers those points. Let me go over subscription. This has been a big concept that we've had out here. So we have 28 power sales contracts signed. We've got a number of letters of interest, with a number of different utilities that would develop into things. The biggest one is this we refer to as Washington, it's Grant County Public Utility District in Washington State for 150 megawatts. And they're looking at undivided ownership. They're not going to be a member of UAMPS. They want to have their own undivided share in that. So that means they pick up all their own costs, go get their own money, all that. Again, I think it's a de-risker for us to have them come in. The Arizona utility, and I won't belabor anything, but there's been a situation just due to coal plants shutting down. These coal plants are in Colorado. And by 2025, the Craig projects and the Hayden projects will be offline. And Western Area Power Administration was using those coal plants to deliver our Colorado River storage project power, more than half of it. And they were exchanging that with the owners of that plant, those coal plants. That coal plant's going away, and they don't have the transmission to get our Colorado River Storage Power up into us for about 140 megawatts, actually. And so UAMPS went to Western Area Power Administration and said, we will step into that exchange of the Salt River project out of Phoenix, was the owner of these coal plants. We will now use the Carbon Free Power Project as the exchange. And then you can deliver the amount into Arizona if we have customers up to that amount. And so we've agreed, we have a meeting tomorrow actually again with them. We've agreed to a limit of 100 megawatts right now for practical modeling purposes. And so we had a utility in Arizona out of Phoenix immediately sign a letter of intent for a letter of interest, excuse me, for 25 megawatts. And the other 75 is up in the air right now. That's down in that other group down there. We've got a number of people trying to get on that 75, whoever gets there first, I guess. And then we've got, so we're looking at 515, we're over that. We've got another, we were just contacted by a large investor-owned utility in the Western United States here for another 150 megawatt request for a letter of intent. They have that letter of intent going through legal right now. But having said all that, I want to make sure you understand, you guys are the power sales contract, people signing the power sales are in charge of the whole project. We call you the first movers. There's still a first movers discount associated with this, somewhere $4.50 to, $4.80. It just depends. It's based on the production tax credits. So we have it anchored, we can calculate it as it goes up and down. We're going to monitorize those, and the 27 or the 28 members, they're going to see that first movers discount. The others will not, to go through. And so I know there's been discussion here on increasing down the road, and we are, we do want to get this set and moving so that we can get the rest of the construction season this year, and not have to wait until next year to start, so we can stay on the 29. And there's a chance, like I said, we could even be maybe sooner than 29 if we can get moving. So, but as those come in, as those entities come in, we're going to be discussing this next week at our project management committee meeting in more depth, where everybody wants to go. We've got at least 30 or 50 megawatts of increased requests coming out of the current participants, if not more. And so we'll just have to go through that. And you guys are in the period, not for tonight, any action tonight, but just you're on the thing. And so we're fully aware of that. And you don't have to worry that you're going to get pushed to the side. You guys have to allow the others in too. So I mean, it's about there.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If you have 515 megawatts, I understand several of these are just letters of intent. Is there a hard date where they have to go to a full contract so that you don't exceed the 462 that you're actually going to construct?
Right. Well, we haven't put, we have not put a hard date to it, but because people are moving quickly. So as we start to approach that, we will start to cut them off. We're not obligated under these letters of interest. So we have not obligated ourselves to 515. No.
I guess my question is, if this number continues to increase, are you going to consider maybe going to either an 8 module? I mean, at what point's your drop dead date where you have to actually start construction of the building?
Yeah. Well, we don't start that until 25. So but the engineering's going through right now, and what we're doing right now, that's a good question. We're drilling holes in the ground right now. I know that sounds really, exciting and all that, but we have to tell the NRC everything that's under our project, right? They want to know every bit of soil data, everything. And so we've deployed drillers right now up there to start drilling those boreholes. And once we drill for that pad, that is going to determine the size of that building. We're not going to bring them back, right? So and we're hoping to have that basically done this fall, at the end of this year. So that is the hard, we'll be sort of set at that point in time. We're not going to be able to go without additional. I guess we could look at somebody wanting to come in and having them pay the marginal increased cost or something. I don't know, but we're pretty well set to have this tied up this year.
Doug, have any of the UAMPS members that fell out come back in?
Yeah, we're getting a little of that. We've had Beaver City they were out, they're back in. Some of the others are talking about coming back in. We just had last municipal utility district in California, Susanville, California. They just dropped out at 3 megawatts. But like I said, I've got over 30 megawatts of increased requests, to go through. I think that was a poor decision. They don't have a plan B. I don't want to be too critical of them, but what I tell people, I said, if not this, what? Okay, you guys should really plan. This is getting serious. I mean, you were talking about power prices and shortages. It is happening. This is a reality. This is not anything we're starting to see what we call an inverted price curve. Okay, and we're going to be talking about this next month too. This is due to a number of things, but the worst part of this inverted curve is that power at 2 a.m. in the morning will be more expensive than power at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I know it's a hard thing to comprehend, but it is there. It's happening right now. And this is due to solar, and then solar drops off, and the machines are all being turned off, and we don't have any energy. And so we have to bring on higher heat rate units to produce energy in the middle of the night. And this is a very serious issue. All the power, all the coal plants that we've lost so far, we're going to see 3 times that much in the next 5 years to 10 years to come off. This is a huge, huge problem. California last August ran out of power. Who would have thought? I mean, here you've got this place that's always had tons of energy, and they literally ran out of power. They had to do blackouts in the state because there was no power. And this was a wake-up call. The phones just started ringing up here on us with that, right? And then, of course, what happened in February through Texas just scared the, whatever out of everybody as well. And now power prices are really, they're really climbing. I'm conflating two things, but I'm very supportive. I think you putting another machine here would be really, really wise to do, just for reliability purposes, it's just like, it's getting, and we don't know when we're going to get Pacific Corp, Pacific Corp to build that second line down here. And we need it. We need it redundant. We need it over on the other side of the county, so we have a loop system. It's just things like this. It's getting. I don't want to scare you, but I tell you, from my point of view, I'm nervous about the future. But we've got plans. We're planning. We're building. We're doing solar projects. We're doing wind. We're doing more waste heat. We're going to continue to bring on resources. We're now investigating hydrogen electrolysis to fire through gas plants as well. A lot of things. So we're constantly, working on things. So, so it's pretty indicative. But I just want to make sure going back up over 6 is going to be very difficult here in just a few months. We're not going to be able to do that. And so these guys either have to, the old adage, fish or cut bait, one of those things out there, and everybody knows it. And so they're rushing around. And that's why I sent out an email to all the participants to say, if you're thinking of getting more capacity, you should start seriously thinking about it right now and not wait down the road.
So I guess that's my question. We've got Gary coming offline. We're losing those same sources. We've
Yes,
always talked that 3 may not be the number. Maybe 5's the number, or 4 or 6 or.
Yeah. So Doug, that's a good question. If Santa Clara, we have discussed increasing our subscription by 3. So we have a total of 6, but now it sounds like council maybe even thinking maybe going up to another 5. So we're at 8. When would you suggest? I know Jackie and I talked about this a little while ago, but maybe a date that we would want to up our subscription.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We're gonna have a major discussion next week at the project management committee, Gary. So you'll be there, I assume, or online at least, and that. And I think and we're just going to go through the when to do that. To get everybody out there. We still have. We're anticipating that we're going to be signing that 150 megawatt development agreement. So that's going to take a big chunk out, and that's going to make the other guys nervous, right? Yeah. The others that are looking at, they're going to do, but we control it. So that's what we want to do. We want to do this, the proper way to do it is, I think, is just to give it another week, bring together, discuss it, and get the timing, and then let it go through the governing bodies, because the increase has to go through the governing bodies. We can't,
Yes.
Yeah. So if that helps, I know it sounds, I don't want to get anybody overly nervous about you're in control of the project. Nobody else can get any kilowatts in it unless you let them have them. And so that's why we want to discuss this, how we go through this process and when we should initiate this. But I know what I'm really counseling everybody is start working either with Kelton Anderson of our office. He does forecasting and planning and that out there. He can work through that. You've got UFS on utility impact or rate impacts. You could use them as well, things like that, and just start to look at that analysis in depth, if you will, and go through that. But yeah, we got it planned for a topic item next Tuesday, I believe it is, next Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
That answers the question. So to stay the same without doing anything, you don't need to do anything. There's no requirement. The power sales contracts require a governing body resolution only if you exit the project or reduce your amount or increase your amount. If you come to this off-ramp, we have a bunch of other off-ramps coming up. I wanted to just point out that second major bullet. These are economic competitive tests. That's what an ECT is. You know, this business is so full of acronyms. And so we're doing one at the end of this coming up, getting ready as soon as everybody's set and ready to go. We're going to have one. We have one at a class 3 estimate, which is anticipated in the fall of 22 or, the late summer of 22. That's also another off-ramp is provided to the participants at that time. And then, of course, the class 2. Now, there's also other ECT runs, economic competitive runs that can happen if something changes in the project somehow, something move around. So there's plenty of those. So we have those periods of time and but I just know that the participants, the representatives want to make sure the governing bodies are up to speed on everything that's going through and not trying to drive, fast in their headlights, if you will, on this with their guys. And so, that's why I think that's the report we're giving here tonight. So right now, I believe that's Gary. That's what you're looking at is just staying the same for tonight, right? I mean, you're not going to decrease or increase tonight. Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's what I understood too.
Did you see his look?
Yeah, I know. I got panicked too when I saw his look. What?
Not tonight, but I do think it's conversation we need to start having just to sure. I mean, we've gone through them. I can't remember the entire what goes offline, but by the time this comes up, we lose 6 megawatt hours. Is that what we lose in what we have right now in the next 8 years?
What's coming off your base?
What's coming off?
We're San Juan.
San Juan next summer.
Yeah.
Next summer.
So there's one I thought there was another in 26, or am I mistaken?
We have, in 25, the Intermountain Power Project will be shut down in Millard County.
The whole thing? The whole thing's closed.
Yeah, well,
down
they're
at
going to
25?
convert it over to natural gas with hydrogen augmentation.
Okay.
Hopefully that works. Natural gas works. Okay. But just to give you a cost comparison, I think this is a good thing. So the Intermountain Power Project, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is not giving anybody a price forecast. That's to me is always suspect, but it's really high. They don't, but we have a sister organization in California called the Northern California Power Agency. And they have an existing combined cycle plant called the Lodi Energy Center. And they just went through a study with Burns and McDonald to augment that gas, that combined cycle with hydrogen. They'd make from groundwater that's there in the valley on electrolyzed. And so that's basically 10 hours of hydrogen production at 30% volume. The physics here are way different than what you think. But anyway, it's a 20% reduction in carbon greenhouse gas for them, I think. But their projected price is just under $84 a megawatt hour in today's dollars. So you compare that to 58. You see, that's why we're saying that we think this is really a good value. This would be what gas right now. Today, gas was just under $6. I think the strike price was $5.50 or something like that. I think it was something like that. This morning, Kern delivered. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right around 6.
Yeah. And it's been because again, the heat, the heat problems we've got up here are just everybody's turned on their generators. California, the importing lines out of the north, what we call the California-Oregon Border Transmission Project, it could be burned down. I mean, I haven't seen any news feed yet, but those fires are right under all those lines coming into California. The DC line that runs from the Columbia River all the way to Los Angeles, right in the middle of those fires. I mean, they've been able to keep them on, but with the arcing and stuff like that, they're really afraid they're going to have to turn them off. I mean, they've got to get that thing. This is, it's just funny how the fable, the ant, the grasshopper concept, I mean, people have just been sitting around ignoring what's going on. And UAMPS, not to, we've been looking at this for over 10 years now. We've been trying to plan this in and get this transition. It's been hard for people to recognize we needed to make this transition. And now it's coming home to roost fast. So I think that's really, I don't think there's anything, I think I went over that. That's your current situation. We've sent in your things so you can see the it goes through, and I can talk about this if you want, but and this is when prior to August 13th is really the portfolio. That's the date, Gary, we've been sort of looking at, but we want to talk about it more next Tuesday. I've just had too many questions and it's just too hard to do it piece by piece by piece. I'd rather just get everybody in the same room and do it all at once if you could. And I think that is where it is. And let me just personally, I'll just say my personal point of view on this. This project is done now. I mean, for all the de-risking thing, we still have construction. Construction is very, very hard to control. That we're going to do our, we've got mechanisms in here. We've got what we call divisions of responsibility, so that if the contractor comes to me and says, oh, we missed this, we have to have a change order, they have to pay for it. If UAMPS has missed something and we have to pay for it. If, NewScale missed it, they have to pay for it. That's how we set this thing up if you go through it. So I really do think this is something we can get done. And we'll get it online as soon as we can get it online, and we can start moving on to the next projects. Unless there's any other questions.
What is the next project going to be, Doug?
Well, like I said, right now we're, UAMPS, I guess, we just don't like to be idle. So we are working on 2 solar projects right now. One's going to be down on the Navajo Reservation, the Red Mesa project. The other one, we call it the Steel Project. Because it's up by Plymouth, it's up in Box Elder County, out there by Nucor, the steel solar. Those are contractually set already. We're also looking at another waste heat like at Vail, you're operating up here, but up in Wyoming, we call it Muddy Creek. It's right up at the head of the Kern River pipeline. And then we're looking at expanding the Horse Butte Wind Project right now as well. And then, like I said, I am now working with NCPA, Northern California Power Agency, those guys, to look at firing hydrogen into our Nebo plant in at Payson, Utah. We think that we can use that wastewater, the secondary effluent that we're cooling with, go back over to primary water to cool with, and then use that with electrolysis and blend that hydrogen in there. But I got to see the price is going to. The price is going to have to come way, way down. But I think that's something you see. To your point, Congressman Shakespeare, is that you'd have or councilman. Maybe he's being pressured.
I think that's a demotion, actually.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
But that technology as it improves, that should drop in price, right, over time, because that's just really, we know it and we know how to do it, but we just don't do it in bulk, right? We go through some. Yeah, and then I think the next major one will be a deployment of this technology again at one of the coal sites. I really do. It should only take a couple of years to license at that point. We've written this thing in, and it should be reasonably priced. Like I said, it'll be in that $60, $65 range is what I'd say.
What's the price, just for knowledge of it? What's price of a megawatt hour coming out of these coal plants for purchase?
Right now, with that, they're about $45 to $55. So they're very for a lot of us, this project at $58 is under our average cost of wholesale power. So we're not anticipating rate increase impact. Now, out of the Hunter plant, we've paid off all the debt. So we don't have any more debt on that plant. And so we're doing that at about $25, just operating costs. What's happened? Fuel costs have gone up. When I started this business, in this business in 1979, okay, and coal was 80 cents a million BTU. is now $3-4 a million BTU just for coal. And so that's what's really driven it up. And, they're old, they break all the time now, so the costs have gone up. But yeah, and a natural gas plant being built combined cycle right now would be in that same, that's what we want to do. That's why we sort of picked that $55 actually was we thought that would be an alternative cost. We want to do this for greenhouse gas regulation hedge, right? Because no matter what anybody thinks about, climate change, if the federal government or state governments pass regulation, we have to live with it. We have to pay for it. So I wanted to have something out there that didn't cost us any more than a carbon source would cost us, but would give us a hedge against that carbon tax right now. So, and we're still there. And that's really been the motivation on this thing. So I think we're still there. Okay.
Any other questions for Doug?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure having you down. So
Yeah, I'm pleased to be able to come down and around again. So thanks. Great. Thank you very much.
we will see you in California.
Thank you so much, Doug. Appreciate you coming to do that.
Jack Taylor, you still awake?
I'm still here. It just brings back a lot of old memories listening to you guys.
Well, we appreciate you getting on the phone with us, Jack. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you. It's good to hear you guys. I'm in support of this. I would like to ask Doug one question is when does he think that we will know? Oh, is he gone?
Yeah, he's left.
Oh,
When he
okay.
said Jack,
When I said Jack, Doug bolted.
He's gone. I just like to know, we'll find out next week, but I'd like to kind of know when Grant is, when's he going to know when Grant comes in? I think we need more resource over in Santa Clara. We're going to need it, but it's a risk because until these other guys start coming in, it's quite expensive, the cost. So it just makes me nervous if they happen to bail, then, we're going to have to pay that money back. So if we don't end up with enough prescription. So it makes me a little nervous. We need to think about that, but I do know you're going to need more resource. And like Doug said, there's nothing else out there. And I will tell you this, the guys that build IPP and also over at over in Price, the unit over there, they took big risks and they didn't even have the prescriptions. And they just realized that they needed to have the resource, the capacity, and they moved forward. And they were great men with that were strong, and they realized that there's a problem. And I think that we have that same problem that we've got today is what they had back then. And they had the foresight and they moved forward, and it was tough and they had to make a lot of tough decisions, but they made it work. And I think we can make this work, but we just got to stick with it.
Okay, you'll be on the meeting next week with them,
I'll
Jack?
be there. Yes, I've been there every month, and I'll be there again.
Okay,
You probably want to, you might want to put it on the agenda for next month to increase, and we can make that decision during the next 2 weeks. I think he said we had to have it in there by the 13th.
yeah, so when's that first meeting or action meeting in August?
The 11th, August 11th is our first regular meeting.
Skin of her teeth. Let's put it on that agenda.
Okay.
Okay. And if you need time at the work meeting to talk about it, we can do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate hearing your voice again. Thanks for the help.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, Mayor and Council reports. Ben?
Fishing was stellar, Mayor.
It looked like a lot of fun, bro. Yes, it
I've
did.
never fished where my arms got tired.
Those are
but,
big numbers that you were posting.
So I don't have any, I've been in any meetings, pretty quiet in July, but I did notice a tree missing. Looked like there was a wreck out here on Santa Clara Drive. Did I miss something fun?
they closed I-15 because of the fire in the gorge. RV.
Motorhome went through there.
Fell asleep.
Took out the island.
Yeah, it looked
And
like
a
it was.
transmission.
So again, that's what I wondered. So obviously, so that was my next question. As kind of a fire update, it looked like I looked like I kind of missed a lot of excitement. Missed a bunch of heat but so back to that, if they again, I think this was our question. Are we getting funding for? We should be able to get funding because it's happening more and more that they're shutting down I-15, and we take all of that.
We're eligible for federal money for certain things if we want to go after it, but it costs us more than we get.
Is it all
Old
that?
91 is eligible,
Mhm.
but we have to get the MPO to include Pioneer Parkway on that part because,
we do that.
and Santa Clara Drive. And that's because we own it. They've got to buy into that fact that we need federal funds to upgrade them because of the usage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, could we go that direction to where we're not tied to the Fed, we're tied to the state level, letting them, I don't know,
Actually, we're tied to the county. If we can get the county to support us, you can move forward. If we can get county commission to say, they're going after funding for 91. They are trying to get funding for old
They're
91.
going for a raise grant right now, Ivans is.
And we need to bite in and say, look, it kind of like the EMS. I mean, we're supplying, I think we looked at it and over the last 5 years, $200,000 that's come out of the city budget that we don't get reimbursed for.
maybe it's a discussion at a work meeting. I just thought, as we go through, it might be something because again, I can only imagine at that time what this road looked like with I-15 because it was shut down. But anyway, and that was just my question on the fires, just kind of an update where we're at with everything.
Luckily, it was in the middle of the night. The shutdown was late.
Was it?
So it was an off-peak period on I-15, and they'd shut everything down south. A lot of them didn't come. And they came the next morning when they opened it up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just shut down overnight and then opened up again. And they had it pretty well contained overnight. And the freeway was open back up.
How did we do for the 4th with restrictions and everything? I think that was what I guess I was asking is.
Yeah, it was a good thing that we restricted the areas. We were real fortunate. We didn't have any significant fires, so to speak of. There was a lot of activity in the parking area at Gubler Park. But it was good for us. So we noticed the difference by limiting the areas and restricting it to certain areas.
I let President Hans know he was trying to light some sparklers over there, and I went over and told him
Shut him down.
he was in the restricted area. So
You're the sheriff.
That's all I have.
That's your section of the river. We did sign you up for that reach of the
we're
river.
game on. So, all right, that's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, Ben. Lena?
All right. I have an issue from the Land Use Task Force. So they asked a few of us to be on they call it the home team. I can't tell you what it's called, but a few of the LPC members are on the home team for the Land Use Task Force. So I volunteered for that. And they are looking at setting a policy for inclusionary zoning. They believe it's going to come back. They removed the language out of the Senate bill this year, but they think it's going to come back. So they're just working to get prepared for that. And so they've asked us to come back to our cities and find out, one, if we would be willing to adopt a voluntary inclusion zoning policy, and two, what state level incentives would make adopting one more appealing. And then I'm to report back. So I don't need an answer tonight, but if you want to think about it, and then maybe at our next meeting, we can just briefly decide if that's something we're interested in, and then I can send a response back.
Can you explain what that is for Congressman Shakespeare?
You've got staff for that.
Oh, that's right.
So inclusionary zoning basically just states that if, as part of our new construction, that a share of that would be required to be affordable, low to moderate income housing.
And it'd have to meet
Is
the
the
AMI
gist.
threshold.
Correct.
Everything that comes into play.
Basically, that chart that we looked at last week, it would look at that chart, basically.
They talked about this back in 2006 or, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
They used to have that committee that.
workforce housing. I was there, man. I was there. So yeah, this is kind of coming back to that. This is what happens if the market doesn't satisfy the need. This is the government making it satisfy the need.
Yes. And that's exactly what will happen. They'll force the city to
They'll
put in
mandate
an inclusionary zoning. So that's why the league's trying to hedge it off at the front. So anyways, if you'll just think about those couple of questions. That's basically the hottest topic right now as far as the land use task force. And then Heritage Commission, we're meeting actually the first week in August, I think, is our next meeting. And we're going to we have some members whose terms are expiring. And so we're going to come back to Mayor and ask him to probably make some appointments, but we'll come back next month after our meeting and do that.
Okay.
And that's all. And we are approved. We're a go for the shack. So Crystal, I think you were making sure that was on all of our stuff.
August 11th, is that right?
Yep. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
A couple of things. We're still looking for, unless it's been decided, volunteer of the year for the Swiss Days.
I think it's been decided. Tony Kuhlman for the work that he does on the veterans the Wreaths Across America program, where he organized that countywide for a number of years and funded it too.
That's great.
And then he's also, let me see.
Wait, that's fine. I mean, I just know that we were talking about it and trying to come up with names.
Yeah, I gave Ditzy a couple of names when she sent out
Yeah,
the
I know.
request, and I think they liked Tony. And I agreed with that 100% with the work he does with veterans and stuff.
Good. And then Brad and I met with the BLM on the shooting sports, and we're moving forward with the county to try and find out what their participation level is. And it's not going to be, our indication it's not going to be a quick process. It's going to be a little bit of time. They've got, because of the tortoise in the area, it's going to require taking it to the Fish and Wildlife again rather than just the BLM. So we're going to have to deal with probably some mitigation and things like that. But I also met with the county's emergency preparedness, Jason Whipple, on the costs that we're incurring in supplying the western side of the county. And he was going to take it to the state. And I asked the chief if he would get with Jason and go over things so that he understands it more fully and see if we can't get some help. I think that's it.
Wendell?
Didn't have any meetings. They must think July's hot.
It is hot. For sure it's hot. I met with Senator Lee at the end of June, and he asked about issues, talked a lot about Lake Powell Pipeline, trying to get support on that. Talked a little bit about the new guidelines on the Colorado River. Talked about broadband and some fiber issues. Some of the Treasury Department moves to standards for reliable internet that are being talked about. He has a bill now that he says it's gaining support. They call it the Unshackle Act. It's on his website. You want to read it? It's NEPA reform, reforming the NEPA process a little bit. So it's a little bit easier for projects to get through the NEPA process. So that may be something you may want to check out. It's on Senator Lee's website. There's a meeting with on water conservation with the mayors. All the mayors in the water district got together. We're going to try and address the landscape ordinance and the conservation ordinance as a group so that one ordinance fits all the metro area, at least Washington, Santa Clara, Ivins, and St. George. So there wouldn't be different requirements for a landscaper in one city versus another. Try and get them all on the same page. We'll see how fast that can happen. We're hoping we can get something this fall. It's going to be incentives to replace turf and high water use plants from the water district. They're going to use the
reuse, excessive use surcharge
charges to help fund some of that. We'll be getting back together. Those meetings will be ongoing as that goes through. We had the fiber meeting with UIA, with Washington City, St. George, Santa Clara, and Ivins. I think St. George got wind that we were moving ahead without them and threw us all in a room and said, hey, we need to do this together. We think we're going to get more power as a group. There was some concerns on St. George. Cities doing it on their own may leave some of the poorer areas not getting service. And so that process is still moving forward. I think you'll see the other communities catch up to what we've been talking about fairly quickly. They mentioned something about new franchise agreement negotiations with TDS. Are we in that process?
I need to look into that. I'm not aware, but I'll look into it.
All right. And they want to address that as a unified group too. So
yeah,
that's something that'll have more discussions coming forward as well. The Mayor's Association cases are up. COVID cases are up. The target right now is middle-aged, non-vaccinated. People seem to be the target for the disease. That's where most of your sickness and most of your cases are. Roughly 3 to 5% of the cases in Washington County are the Delta variant. The good news is 90% of ages over 60 have been vaccinated. So all of your extreme high risk groups, a lot of those have been vaccinated, but we're seeing now is that middle-aged groups are the ones that are getting sick and showing up in the hospitals. The younger people, so they're still encouraging everybody to get vaccinated. Opening of school is going to be normal. No test to play requirements, no test to stay requirements. It's business as usual. School starts on August 12th. If you're sick, stay home. They're really going to push that this year, but there's no mask requirement and no test to play on the sports. And so we'll see how it goes. The National Day of Service is on September 11th. The Interfaith Group is wanting to get all of as many people out cleaning up our communities as we can on September 11th from 7 to 9 a.m. Mark Mortensen's kind of taking charge on that, working with the LDS Church. They want to organize them by stakes. They're hoping to get 5,000 to 8,000 people out doing community cleanup. So roadside cleanup, rivers cleanup. If we have work areas, and I'll reach out to the stakes and trying to coordinate that. They did ask that they may need some community assistance with establishing dump or waste areas and then maybe hauling them to the landfill. And so we'll get a little bit more information that way.
Mayor, I have spoken with the stake president in the Heights. I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago and talked about some projects and got him, gave him information to Brad. I said, Brad has a lot of list of projects, Eagle Scout project type things that we have. So I don't know if he been in contact with Brad or not, but I said that was Brad usually had a list, a lot of projects and things, but I mentioned went through a list of stuff
Reach
with
out
him.
to
So.
President Nadal in the Valley Stake too.
Okay.
Let him know. And probably the most exciting thing is Jim Entz is back and he's accepted the position at the Orchard to oversee that committee.
Good for you.
Standing right there at the airplane.
Welcome to Bob.
Welcome home.
At the door.
That's why those yellow ribbons are on the trees.
That's it.
Awesome.
So I let Brad know and he'll be reaching out to Brad and I'm excited for that. They need translators for Ironman. Ironman starts September 12th. So if you know anybody that intern mission or somebody with language skills, they're really needing some translators for that event. They're getting the park. Superintendent Brady Bell said the park's pretty much cleaned up. June 2021 was the busiest month ever in Zion, over 670,000 visitors just in the month of June. There are over 2.5 million total through June. So still a lot of pressure on that park. The county is using all of its American Rescue funds, the ERA money, for water development.
All their ARPA funds, huh?
All the county's ARPA funds are going to be focused on water development. So that was interesting to hear him say that. And then they're concerned, this will affect Chief Flowers, but all the communities are pirate and law enforcement officers from each other. They're just kind of a rotating door. The county would love to see us all get together and set a standard wage and take the competition out for officers between the communities. I just kind of smiled through that one.
Collusion always goes well, right?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
That illegal?
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, if you want to go that route,
Isn't that?
you do a unified county service.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And maybe that's an inch toward that step. No.
I think if the plumbing association did that, we would go to jail. So just let that.
Oh, and I think that's all that I had. So, don't need executive session tonight from the staff. Anything you need to report to council? Can't wait till, or anything you want to ask them? Rob?
Yeah.
Yes, I figured.
Yep, I will share. We hired a power lineman, journey lineman, accepted his offer. Today we got a call. It is Dan Callahan, who was previously with the city. He actually went through his apprenticeship with us and then left and went to Washington City and is coming back. So he accepted. He'll start on August 23rd. We're excited. He'll hit the ground running because he knows the system. He knows the Vail plant, a lot of things that maybe get back up to speed on, but it will be great benefits. So we're putting out for another position because we're down another one. So we're going to be looking for another lineman or apprentice to come to Santa Clara. So that's exciting. Also today, we interviewed for city planner economic development today. Went well. We had two. We had one not show up and two pulled their names out. One got another job, but we interviewed one today. One of them today was fabulous. And so we extended a offer to him and he's going to let us know tomorrow morning whether he accepts or not. So,
I mean, if he takes it, it'll be a really good move, a really positive thing for Santa Clara City. So, he's probably the smartest Parowan guy I've ever met. Spoken with a Cedar Redmond hat. It was a very good interview and it was fun.
It was fabulous. He was fabulous.
So I'm excited about that. Hopefully it's a good news.
Yeah.
Yep, that's all.
Okay. Anything else, council? Just need a motion to adjourn. You can go home.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Denny, second by Wendell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thanks, everyone.